Today we are going to be covering some um, different different things within AlliED. Today we're going to be covering the Escort Order, distance triggers, and we're going to be messing with a little bit of wave files. So I've already, for time savings, I've already constructed a mission. I'm going to kind of go over what it entails. That way we can get the most important details. I didn't spend a lot of time naming the flight groups, but let's dive into it. So first thing I did was I created the skybox, which we've already covered, and I have it set up so I can filter it out so it's not in the way. Then I created a couple of additional backdrops that create some light sources. Now, um, in this mission, what we're going to do, the basic premise is, we'll just say an Alliance pilot is representing uh, the rebellion, is going to fly to this platform in space orbiting a gas giant. They're trying to, let's say, pull this faction into the rebellion against the Empire. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this pilot. We can maybe pretend he's Coron Horn or Kyle Katarn or somebody with some clout, right? And he boards his X-wing and he flies over to this platform with the intention to land. Now, this mission is not going to have any combat in it, and if you're making a campaign, it's not necessary for you to make every mission have loads of combat. Maybe a little something to do, whether you're picking up cargo containers or flying from point A to point B and listening to dialogue. They don't have to be long missions, but they can definitely advance the story. And in this case, we're kind of doing that just to show how these different mission parameters work. So, pilot leaves the, we're going to use an Odysseus class Calamari cruiser, the big one. It doesn't have a 3D model in AlliED, but because it's part of the Darksaber's Ultimate Craft Pack, it does have a ship slot. You just kind of have to generally guess how big they are until another editor like YOGME, I think it's Ye Old Grand Mission Editor, which is I guess it's called an open source project, creating a newer editor. It's a little rough around the edges, but it's getting there. That should have things like op viewing and wireframes or something along those lines at some point. Anyway, so we've got this cruiser. The X-wing leaves the cruiser. I want him to fly to the base and land there. So the starting hangar will be the Calamari cruiser. The landing hangar will be the platform. And in the process of getting there, he's going to pass through this field of satellites, which aren't really easy to see, but they're going to mark sort of the line of protection. So once I get close to those satellites, I want this escorting flight group of authority IRDs to call out a radio command and then escort my X-wing all the way to the platform. Okay. So what we're going to do in order to accomplish that is a few things. So first of all, we need to know how to trigger this. So you could fly around in this mission for 20 minutes. As long as you don't get close to this platform, it'll never trigger the escort. What I don't want it to be timed. I want it to be so that when I get close to the platform, it triggers a wave file that tells me that I have escorts coming to take me back to the platform. And then I just fly to the platform with these guys flying in formation. So in order to accomplish the distance trigger part, what I have to do is pull up some research that somebody on the X-Wing Alliance Upgrade forums had done. At some point, I think this would be great to have in Yield Grand Mission Editor if it already isn't. The way you set this up, if you'll notice here, if you just go into the basics, if you set up a trigger with this information, one of the fields actually denotes distance from said object. So we're going to take a look at that in AlliED. So the X-Wing flies here to here. It's the player character, so I didn't give him any orders. But what I do want to do is make sure that the authority IRDs, which are these guys here, their first waypoint is set to circle, or thereabouts, circle this platform about 30 times. So I could be off doing whatever I want, and they're just going to keep circling until an event happens. Now, that event would cause the ships here to escort my ship all the way in. And if you take a look at the orders, you'll see if you want a ship to escort, you select escort prevent boarding, then you set the flight group that you want them to escort. This is me here, X-Wing unnamed one. I should have probably named these so it's not as confusing, but I think you'll get the gist. So I have set this as X-Wing unnamed. In fact, let's go in here and let's name these. Blue Escort is the authority IRD. I'll name me I don't even think I spelled that right. Okay, so Escort Order. Taking a look. Flight group, escort, prevent boarding for the IRD Blue Escort. Escort, prevent boarding, flight group, X-Wing Ambassador. And then this no effect field here is kind of important. This denotes where the anchor point in relation to my ship that they're going to start to escort. So let's say I'm flying in my ship here, okay, and I want to be led into the platform. And in order to be led into the platform, I think maybe having one escort out here to the left in front and one out to the right in front would give me that feeling, because then I'd also be able to see them as I'm flying instead of them being behind me. So in order to do that, I have to pull up this other document that was in the same thread on the X-Wing Alliance upgrade forum later on in the thread. Now this is some research that I did. Okay, so let's pull up this thing here. So in this thread, which is what's the thread called? Community Project AlliED Unknowns Repository. So there's a whole bunch of cool stuff in here that people figured out with AlliED. One of the things that I figured out was the Escort Order. And if we take a look, and I'm sure somebody's figured out before, but somebody helped. I think somebody created this infographic for me. I don't remember. But anyway, this is kind of a visual representation of those numbers, which I'll show you here. So this number here, the no effect number, which if you'll note is set to 9 right now. If we look at this image, that means that 9 is right here. That's the anchor point. So the first escort in that flight, the lead pilot, will be anchored to this point. The red is on the lateral plane with my ship. The blue is above me, and the green is below me. I wanted them to be on level with me, but out in front. So I wanted to put them at basically the 9 position. Now the second fighter, since this is this IRD2, or this IRD Blue Escort formation, is 2 fighters. If I want them to be to the front left and to the front right of me, I can only set one anchor point, and that's for the escort's lead pilot. The other pilot in the flight has to be, I can't set them an anchor point compared to me. I just have to set their formation properly. So in order to get what I want, if the lead pilot is, if you're looking here, if the lead pilot is here in relation to me, then if I want his wingman to be here, I need to set the Authority IRD's formation to line abreast, which is across. And you can see the view forms. It'll be here and here if my pilot's here. And then the spacing thereabouts, I've experimented is about 14 to get them equally here and here. Okay, so if we look back at this infographic, if we put the pilot, the lead pilot in the escort group to anchor point 9 through the escort order, and then set that flight group's formation to line abreast and make the spacing 14, the other plane, the other starfighter in that group, will anchor at about a point 11. It's not actually point 11, but it's about that spot. It's maybe a little complicated, but it gives you at least a general understanding of how it works, so you can experiment with it yourself. Okay, sorry. So the next thing we have to do is set the trigger in which that happens. So if he's just going to circle the waypoints for 30 times, eventually he'll come to escort me after they've circled the waypoint 30 times. But let's say I want it to happen the moment I get within I don't know, let's say 4 kilometers of this base. So we can kind of count generally here. That's 1 square is 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers. So anywhere in about this area, if I get that close, I want these escorts, wherever they are, flying around, to break their circling mission and then come fly with me back to the base. In order to do that, I have to go to the jump tab here. And in order to get this flight group to jump to Order 2, which it says right here, Order 2 in Region 1, a certain condition has to be met. Okay? So, in order to do this, we have to go back to this forum post, and you can see, if I can find it. Here it is. No. Might be later on. Yeah, let's see. There it is. Okay, so you set it up. Your first, we're going to ignore this first part because this is kind of out of place logically. But you want to set the flight group to start the trigger. So the flight group to start the trigger here is X-Wing Ambassador 1. Then the next part is be in proximity of, in parentheses, all destroyed. And if we go back to the forum post, you'll see that the flight group must be in proximity of all destroyed. And then these two here are part of it as well. So you'll see 0, we'll leave that alone, but we want to set what the X-Wing has to be in proximity of to trigger this. That would be platform unnamed, okay, this guy right here. Now, that doesn't really tell me how far I need to be from that, so that's where we use this first field, okay? Now, the way AlliED set up, I guess when he created this, he didn't know that setting all these settings like this turns this top field into a distance trigger. So if you read, none of these options really make sense for distance. So you have to use this field on the forums to determine what that means. So if you want your distance is set here. So let's say I want 4 kilometers away from that platform. That would be the setting for 66%. So we go back here and we'd set it to 66%. But it's already set to 20, so let's see. I wonder what that was. 20 is set to 6 kilometers. So I had already previously set it so that at 6 kilometers out they escort me. So let's just leave it at that and see what happens. Okay, so now we kind of have a general understanding. This Authority IRD Blue Escort Flight Group is going to circle 30 times in their formation. And they're going to be in line abreast formation. And then as soon as my X-Wing gets within 6 kilometers of this, they're going to jump to this order, and they're going to escort me. And their escort is going to have an anchor point of 9, and being line abreast and 14 line abreast here, and spaced 14 out, they're going to be on the front left, front right of me. And then I can fly all the way in. Okay, it's kind of the general idea here, and you'll see it in practice once this is up. But I also want to set an audio trigger so that I kind of know, or not an audio trigger, but an audio indication that I've done this right. So I set in the mission voice folder, I created my own audio file. So if we go to wave mission voice, I created a folder for just random sound bites that I make, and then I don't name your wave files anything very long. Make them short or they won't play properly. So I made an audio file, I named it this, and then I went in here after I created the list file. If you hit this button, it creates a list file. It's already done it, so we'll take a look real quick. Okay, so in the mission voice file, you'll see that this mission, which is 8B-mu9, has a list file created, which I did by hitting this button down here. If I open it, it's automatically generated by AlliED. This is the only mission voice set up in the mission, and it points to the right place. What I did was, once I created that, I opened this, and I just found my folder, and it automatically basically created it. Then I set the trigger in order for it to actually send the message, which is the same trigger that makes the IRD is change their mission to escort. Okay, so it's the exact same trigger. So that trigger makes them escort me. It also sends a mission. There's another way that I could have done this. I could have done it there's multiple different ways that I could do this, but it was easiest to just copy the same parameters for that to the message. And then I just colored the message blue and just kind of gave me a short indication of what this is about. And then I saved it. So if we go into the mission, let's review real quick how we get in here with I believe this is again part of the multiplayer patch for Darksaber's Ultimate Craft patch. So I click on the combat chamber. Remember, we're on the Imperial install right now, even though we're flying X-Wings. And I click single player, and it'll play a little animation, which you could skip, I think, if you hit escape. So the TIE Fighter pilot climbs into the thing, and you hear the thing. Yeah. Alright, so now that we're here, usually when you start your game, this is what you see, your skirmish editor, okay? You can also click the training exercises buttons and play past campaign missions, but the multiplayer patch adds this button over here. Oh my god, where's the hands? And it's called Combat Engagements. If I click that, it takes me to the Combat folder, which is within AlliED. And I can load combat missions through here. So I've already set up the mission. It's AlliED Distance Trigger and Escort. Click on that. That looks right. X-Wing Ambassador. And I didn't create a mission briefing or goals, but we can just jump right into a quick start. And when I load in, I should be in the calamari hangar of that large ship. I mean, there's some rebel ships over there. That looks... Oh, it appears that I'm in the hangar bay right now. Let's exit out here and see what we messed up. Okay, X-Wing Ambassador, arrival should be through this guy. Departure should be through the platform. I'm not sure why the hangar is wrong, but... Let's try this. Let's set the cruiser. Maybe it's actually, I can't remember. We're about to just experiment. The arrival might not set the arrival hangar. I think it's the primary and secondary exit points. So let's try that and see if that makes any difference. Okay, we'll refly. Okay, there we go. That looks right. That looks like an Alliance hangar to me, right? Got some X-Wings, some A-Wings, some Y-Wings. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and launch. And there we are. Okay, now it automatically opens your S-foils, which I don't like. But now we have the landing struts as well. I wish they weren't tied to the same button, but oh well. I guess the more we play with this, the more we'll figure out cool stuff. Anyway, it still looks cool from the cockpit. My S-foils are closed. Alright, so let's take a look at what we're doing. Okay, so here's the gas giant. Here's the platform. So orbiting that. We want to bring these guys into the Alliance. Alright, let's see what's in the mission area. So I've got a satellite there, there, and oh, there's some escorts. Alright, so they're just flying their flight plan, doing their own thing. We'll mark them as 1, and then let's target this guy. Mark them as 1. Alright, so we're about 7 kilometers out from that station. That escort's just flying around doing their own business. They should be expecting us. We radioed ahead. Alright, we're within 6 kilometers now. Or just about.
Alliance pilot, you are clear to land. To begin negotiations. Interceptors will escort you in.
Alright, so it wasn't exactly 6 kilometers. It was a little under 6. But it did trigger. The Authority IRDs turned to escort me about the same time the mission update or the radio broadcast came through. So we could just kind of cruise along and pick up our escort. We're not at full throttle right now because we don't want to alarm anybody. We're not coming in for attack. Not that one X-Wing would be much of a threat. So there's the platform. There's one of our escorts. There's another escort. He's coming up behind me. There he is. Alright, so that must be the lead pilot. If I would have set up his global unit numbers properly, then we would know. That should be the number 9 escort slot. So remember, that's out in front of me on level plane to the left. And then because that flight's in a line abreast formation, spacing of 14, his buddy is right there, just about the same spot. It's about dead on. If we go outside here like this, we can turn around, we can watch. Oh, shit. As I turn, they turn with me. It's a little delayed, but it works. Where's the other guy? There he is. Alright, so let's just take it in. Nice and slow. There's our calamari cruiser in the back there. With any luck, our negotiations will be fruitful and we'll have more forces to fight the Empire. Oh god, that almost hurt to say. Ugh. Inspect. Let's hope that the alternate hangar triggers as I get closer. Here we go. Rolling in. There's a problem though. That the alternate hangar triggered properly. It appears as though it does not function properly. But you get the general idea. Thanks for watching.